and it's time for another episode of Be the Teacher. With this episode, we'll be following up on our script writing and plot structure video. We'll be going into what it takes to write a scene. So this particular video will walk you through plot structure in a scene, and then we'll look at how those scenes come together in a more detailed way when making up a script. The good news about this particular video is it's shorter than the last one. So let's get started. You may have watched my Be the Teacher about plot structure by now. If you did, you know that the structure of a play is similar to the structures of the scenes that make up that play. Scripts and the scenes that make up those scripts are about two or more characters fighting over what they believe in. As I said in that last video, values and the theme you want the characters to explore drive the story. Typically, in the first few moments of a script, not only do we see the values of the main character, but the values of the opponent. It all comes back to your theme. That's right. It is your job to determine the big lesson you are planning to teach your audience, and the script will be the story you use to teach that idea. Why is a theme so important? If you are not passionate about your idea, and if your story does not inspire change in some way, you will not care about the movie you create. And even worse, your audience will not care either. Let's review how overall plot structure works. Okay, here we go. Step number 1. We meet a protagonist, or sometimes protagonists, and we learn what normal looks like for this particular character. The normal is broken by some event, and the protagonist now has something he or she wants to get or do. An antagonist, or antagonists, who usually has something he or she wants, gets in the way of the protagonist and becomes an obstacle in the protagonist's journey. The protagonist achieves his or her want or does not. Furthermore, by fighting for what the character wanted, this character usually finds something he or she needed all along, but didn't know. Want and need are usually different. The want was something the character was physically pursuing, and the need desire was something inside that needed to change about the character. This need desire is usually something psychological, and the protagonist's character changes as a result. This is usually the place the theme is revealed, and it is the lesson you were trying to teach the audience all along. Okay, almost all scenes and scripts follow this formula. So the question is, where do you start when you understand this formula? Okay, so let's think of it this way. You either right now need to find a theme you are passionate about and you want to teach your audience, or maybe you have an idea about a scene that you want to create. Right? So if you have a theme, ask yourself, what is a situation and character that will help me teach this lesson to the audience? On the other hand, if you have an idea, ask yourself, what lesson am I trying to teach with this story? Your characters will eventually need to teach/accomplish this goal. All right, so it is time to write your scene. What do? Well, you will create one scene or a number of scenes that will lead the protagonist from the first moment of your script to the last. First, a scene is usually driven by one character. Normally it's the protagonist, but it could also be an antagonist and in some cases a supporting character. All right, let's start by drawing our plot structure diagram. This is the start of the scene. Here's the most exciting part, and there's the end. Okay, so the character who drives the action of the scene will enter the scene. Now, what you need to know is this. The character will experience a change at some point in the scene, and he or she will be different at the end of the scene. It is your job to determine what causes the change for the character. Now, the energy of the scene will increase between the moment when the change begins and the moment when the change is complete. Whatever has changed, the character has caused him or her to want something. And every scene is a mini script, just like this, a character trying to get what he or she wants. And if you're writing a script, remember that every scene that you create will basically follow this structure, and every scene that you create will come together to build the bigger plot structure for the entire script. Up we go. All right, now, if you are writing a standalone scene, you now know the structure. But if you are writing a bigger script or even a treatment, then let's discuss ways the scenes would work together in a larger script. Okay, so in scenes towards the beginning of the script, we see the normal of the world and hints about the change the protagonist is hoping for. We also see hints of the antagonist. We also see the moment that changes the character and starts him or her on the adventure. This is where we would learn what the protagonist wants. This would be the inciting incident. And the greatest number of scenes actually occur in the middle of the script. These are moments that get the protagonist closer to or further away from what the character wants. Moments in your scenes that can change the protagonist are challenges he or she overcomes or new information that he or she learns. In this section, the protagonist pursues his or her goal, and it usually always goes wrong. The more obstacles your character needs to overcome, the more exciting your movie will be. These can also be scenes where the antagonist is going after what he or she wants, causing obstacles for the protagonist. Occasionally, you will also have a scene with a supporting character who is helping the protagonist or antagonist get closer to what he or she wants. I should point out that these characters are usually exploring the same theme. The antagonist usually has the opposite perspective on the theme, and the sidekick and henchman usually take the side of the characters they are associated with. Let me give you the greatest piece of advice if you are writing a full script or a full treatment. Okay, let's start by drawing the most exciting part of our scene or script. There we go. So, when you reach this part of your treatment or script, your character will be going after what he or she wants. As your character encounters obstacles on the journey and adjusts, make sure that the new tactic is completely different from the tactic used in the scene before. If your character does different things to get what he or she wants, your script will be more interesting. For example, let's say you got this tree and your character rescues a dog from a tree to get what he wants. In the next scene, he should not rescue a cat. Sorry, Mr. Kitty. He should be fighting a dragon or in an action scene in a car. Get what I'm saying? Different things. So, let's get to the end. Scenes towards the end of a script are usually the most intense, and they center around the moments when the character takes on the greatest challenges. We see the protagonist get what he or she wants, and we see the change that success or defeat can cause in the protagonist. Again, you will create one scene or a number of scenes that will lead the protagonist from the first moment of your script to the last. A scene is usually driven by one character, the protagonist, the antagonist, or a supporting character. And every scene is basically a mini script. The character who drives the action of the scene will enter the scene. It's your job to determine what causes the change for the character, and the energy of the scene will increase between the moment when the change begins and the moment when the change is complete. Remember, whatever has changed, the character has caused him or her to want something. So the character will experience a change at some point, and he or she will be different at the end of the scene. Like we said at the beginning, it all comes back to your theme. And it is your job to determine the big lesson that you are planning to teach your audience, and the script will be the story you use to teach that idea. Remember, if you are not passionate about your idea, and if your story does not inspire change in some way, you will not care about the movie you create, and even worse, your audience will not care. As always, start with a treatment. Remember the structure of plot, and you should be able to create whatever the assignment is, both scenes and scripts. So that's it for another episode of Be the Teacher. If you're writing a scene and you get stuck, you may want to watch this video again for inspiration. And don't forget the other great videos that are out there on treatments and scripts. Okay, that's it for this episode. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode of Be the Teacher.